What's going on, arcade nerds? I'm going to start this project. This is a Star Wars cabinet, and a buddy of mine dropped it off, and he wants me to get it going. According to him, it worked for a little while and quit working. Just to be, because I'm a good guy, I'm going to do the body work also. And as you can see, there's a giant hole here, and a giant hole here. And this whole piece is, separating from the cabinet. But this video is really just going to be, we're going to concentrate on getting it working again. Okay. So in the back, as you can see, there was no monitor. He gave me the monitor separately. I just kind of shoved the monitor in there for now. I'm going to end up having to fix the monitor. And I believe there's board issues, so we're going to fix the board. I just slid the board in. I see it's missing the AR2 power supply, so that can't be good, right? I mean, I don't know how it ran before, but as you can see, there is some of the side wood laying in the bottom of the cabinet. There's the fan laying on the ground. The harness is kind of in pieces here. I'm not really sure how this thing ran recently, but whatever. And I'm not sure what someone was doing with this angle bracket, but this cabinet's gonna need some serious help. So in this video, let's just concentrate on getting these guts to work. Okay, so I just went ahead and this is not rebuilt, but this is a tested working power supply. And I just went ahead and plugged that in, and I noticed it was missing the extension cable that went from the harness to the monitor right here. So I'm not sure how this really worked before, but evidently it worked. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on and let's see what we get here. I got some bare wires hanging there, as long as I don't touch them here. Ooh, I like hearing that. Now we do have a spot killer LED. It looks like an LV2000 kit was installed at one time, and we do have both lights, so that's good. We do have a spot killer though. Let me see what we have. I seen a little flicker. I seen a little flicker, so that's telling me that we have. Oh, there's see it again. That's telling me we have high voltage, which is wonderful. So it would probably just have a board problem. So generally with these Atari color vectors, except for Tempest of course, the first place you really want to start is the AVG chip. So let's swap out the AVG chip on the board. Well, I got something interesting. I was getting ready to change out the AVG chip for a known old working AVG chip, not a new one. And I noticed something very important. If I can find it in the camera, I'll show you. Somebody cut the 7915 voltage regulator, one of the pins. What the hell? You need that. Well, see, this regulator and this regulator right here make your regulate your plus and minus 15 volt on your board, and these two regulators run op amps and so on, so they can operate your monitor. And since someone specifically cut that, that's not broken. That's not natural causes there. Since someone specifically cut that, I'd imagine they had board issues and they just couldn't figure it out. So that's probably where we're gonna start. I'm going to go ahead and replace it, and we're going to get some voltage readings off it and see what happens. But I have a hunch that we're going to have some blown op amps and whatever. There is no way this thing ran just a little bit ago. Someone worked on it, But alright, so I'm going to go ahead and replace that regulator first. Okay, so since the 7915, which is a negative 15 volt regulator, was bad, I'm going to measure the negative 15 volt at the board. And we now have negative 15 volts, which is awesome. But we have no spot killer. I mean, we have spot killer. So let me check the positive 15 while I'm at it, which is right here. And oh, that's 5. Is that? Oh, I'm sorry, that is plus 5. Where is the? Here's plus 12, by the way. Of course, we wouldn't have sound without that. We have that. Where is the? There it is. Okay, so let's test this guy. So we have plus and minus 15 volts now. Beautiful. And I don't feel any hot op amps. Okay, so we have spot killer. And no regulators are hot. That's what I wanted to. That's what I wanted to see. So maybe that was just some unrelated issue. Who knows? So, you know what? Before I even get involved in any repair work at all, I'm going to clean all the connections. I noticed there's a spot where it looked like somebody spilled something on the board. And also, it looks like somebody soldered onto the red, green, and blue tabs, X and Y. They soldered onto the voltage pins. So somebody had this on a test bench. And and I see some red flags right around this connector. Somebody filled up a bunch of solder, and they made the pads thicker. Don't ever do that. And the reason why is because when you make these edge connectors thicker, when you plug your connector in, then you force the connector pins to open up more, and you basically ruin the connector. It'll only work in this board for the rest of its life until you replace the connector. Someone did that on all of these. I was originally intending on putting this board in my machine to test it, and I seen that and I'm like, oh no. So I didn't want to ruin my harness over this. So I'm going to take this out and let's just do some cleanup. Okay, here's another red flag right off the bat. If you can see here, it looks like one of these capacitors leaked and ate the board a little bit. Luckily it's in a spot where it's not that big of a deal, but if you want to test a Starwars board, you don't even need to have the sound board connected. So this is the last of my priority list. Okay, so I'm here at the sink and I have the edge connector, interboard edge connector right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some Tarnex. Now this stuff is good for gold and silver and so on. And it's totally safe to use on these, but you don't want to leave it on forever, like anything. Although with gold it's probably not that big of a deal. I'm just getting a brush. Getting those bristles inside the connector. They're already shining up. Look at that. I'm going to rinse it off. Okay, then I'm going to do a quick rinse of rubbing alcohol. Okay, so now I have some 91% rubbing alcohol. And what I did is I just got a resistor lead and I poked a little hole in the foil. That way it kind of like pisses out like this. I'm just going to kind of get all the inside of these connectors. Front of the board, back of the board. And this does two purposes. Number one, this is rubbing alcohol. This is isopropyl alcohol, 91%, and then it's 9% distilled water. Well, distilled water won't leave any hard water deposits on the board, and the alcohol will just evaporate away. And that's number one. Number two, alcohol evaporates quicker than water. Faster than water, so we'll be able to use this sooner. I can actually put this under a hair dryer for like 5 minutes and it'll be good to use again, you know. But this is actually a common issue with these boards, and hell, any Atari interboard connectors. It's a common issue. So let's put this back together. Let me do some more cleaning. You know what? I figured since I know my voltage is good for the deflection, I figured I'd just swap out the ABG chip and resume where I left off my original thoughts. So I got the board in. It's all in minus the soundboard. The soundboard's not attached right now. I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch. And I hear chatter. No spot killer. Okay. Looking good? Looking good? Looking bad. Looking bad. Now this... Interesting. It looks like it's definitely a monitor issue. What I think is interesting is these lines connecting things. It could very well be it's just turned up a little too high. So let me get my thumb in there and turn it down a hair. Yeah, so it was just turned up a little too high. Just wanted to make sure. That looks like a monitor issue. So let's get the monitor out and let me screw with it. Well, I already kind of probed around a little bit. I still haven't figured out what's wrong. But let me tell you what I have tested. Now let me explain the symptoms. It seems like we have a picture this way, but not a picture this way. It kind of curls over. Okay. So a few things went in my mind. I'm thinking, well, maybe it's possible that there's a bad diode somewhere. One of these little 1N4148s or something like that. So I tested every single diode on board. And just for the hell of it, I even tested the power diodes, even though we know they're probably good. So after that, I tested every single little transistor. Every one of these little transistors, these pre-drivers, and they all tested good. And you know what, here's something else to look at. I know you may not think it's related, but also make sure you test all the diodes and all the transistors in the spot killer circuit, because the spot killer circuit itself, if it malfunctions, can hold down X or Y signals. But very, very, very fat chance of that, but it's possible. Might as well test it. It's a simple board. Test it all. But so there's nothing wrong with the spot killer circuit that I can see with my meter here, at least. So I'm debating on possibly changing these capacitors. I have to look at the schematics, but I believe these schematics have something to do with the pitcher. What's the word? Pin cushion. Correct me if I'm wrong. Give me a comment down below. Are these for pin cushion? Anyways, so you know what? I may go ahead and replace these capacitors just for giggles. But oh, here's something else to test. Get your meter. Yeah, I should have tested this already. Okay, get your meter, and I'm going to test these right now. Both of these resistors. If these resistors are out of spec, it can cause the picture to be really big and distorted or small. Okay, I got 1.6. That's 1.5. So that's actually fine. Totally within specs. I'm going to test this giant resistor right here. Oop. Jeez. 1.6. Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm going to test these transistors right here. Oh, jeez, I gotta put it back on diode test. What am I thinking? Also, of course, cold solder joints. Check all that stuff. Broken record. You guys heard all that before, right? Yeah, it's good. It's a good transistor. That has a funny reading. It's 0.255, and the other reading is 0.6. I may come back to that and pull this out of circuit and test it again out of circuit. And then if it tests good out of circuit, I'll look at the schematics. We'll see. I haven't looked at the schematics yet. I'm just kind of going over the easy stuff. That's another good transistor. Good transistor. This one tests funny. So I'm going to pull it out and retest it out of circuit and see what we get. Okay, so I got it out of circuit. Let's test it. Good. Good. Okay, so that's a good transistor. It's kind of funny how it reads a little goofy. I'm still not looking at schematics yet, I know. I'm going to kind of just trace around this circuit and see what is directly in that circuit that could possibly fail. There's a resistor that I don't know the value of because I'm not looking at the schematics yet, and another resistor. Diode that I know is good. It basically goes straight to the larger transistors on the case. I'm going to put this back, and I'm going to call this probably okay. If I have any issues, I'll come back to it. Here's something interesting. I started pulling these caps out, and I pulled this side out. I just desoldered it, yanked it, and I noticed this was loose. So on the bottom, see if you can see that. Where am I? Right there. See how it's loose? So, you know what? I'm gonna probably replace this anyways, of course. But that was a bad solder joint. So, let's see here. Is this a non-polarized cap? Yeah, BP. If you see this where it says BP, that means bipolar. I don't know if I have any bipolars at 100 microfarad. This is a quick fix. I may end up testing these caps and seeing if they're good instead of actually replacing them. Okay, I'm kind of stumped at the moment here. Let me tell you what I've done. Okay, this basically has two of the same circuit. There's a couple little differences, but it's basically two of the same circuit, X and Y, okay? And so what I've done is I've tested capacitors that were the same values. Now, in order to test capacitors, you have to have a capacitor tester or a meter that can test capacitors. So what I did is I desoldered this capacitor, tested it. I don't need to know what the value is. Don't worry about what the value is. If you have a circuit where there's two of the same of each, and the capacitors have the same numbers on them, just test it. Is it the same as this one? You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the values, you might end up wasting some time. But anyway, so I tested all these capacitors, compared the X and Y of the same exact capacitor with the same exact values, and I have no issues there. I'm starting to think this deflection board's good. Although there's one thing I have not tested yet, and that would be resistors. I have not tested the resistors. Now, if you don't know the resistor code, you could actually just look at the same color bands, because we know we have an X and a Y circuit. We know one of those is working fine, and one of those is not. So, I mean, if you did not know how to decode the resistors, which is really easy, they taught me in school. It may sound bad, but it's bad boys rape our young girls, but Violet gives willingly. That's what they taught me in school. Anyways, and those are the those are the colors of the resistors, and it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. You have your first number, your second number, and then a multiplier. So anyways, if you don't know any of that, you can at least start off and say, okay, this is the same value as this. Let's measure this out of circuit. Let's measure this out of circuit. And just pull one leg. And if you have the same, you're good. If you have a different value, something's wrong, and you need to look up that resistor. That's the point I'm trying to make. But anyway, so I guess I really don't have to look at the schematics on this thing, to be honest. I'm kind of stumped. I'm gonna test the case transistors on the metal frame, and let's see if there's any that are kind of funny. I don't know. If not, by the way, I did kind of go over random stuff that did look funny. And remember, we did have that one capacitor that had a cold solder joint. So, you know, maybe I'll just put this together and it'll fire up. You know what? That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put it back together, and let's see if it fires up. Well, I plugged it in, and we have a working monitor. I'm not sure what, you know, I'm not sure what it was. It had to have been a bad solder joint. That's my theory, at least. Now I can see the board needs to be adjusted, to be moved over and made a little taller and so on. But yeah, so you know, I'll get that. And some of the harness isn't hooked up here. I gotta hook some of the harness up. But I'm probably, you know what? Let me replace those caps on the soundboard, and I'll put it back together, and let's make sure we have all the sounds. Okay, now the soundboard is installed with those new caps, and it's working. All the sounds are there. But I'm going to have Kelly adjust these spots right here while I look at the screen and tell her what to do. Alright. Get around here. Okay, do Y center first.
Alright.
The other way. Or the other way. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going. Stop. Now do X center. The other way. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop. Now do X size.
Okay, hello. There it is.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. A little more. A little more. A little more.
1 second.
Okay.
I think that's all the further I can go, yeah.
Really?
That's it.
Well, we're close enough then. Do Y size. Yep, back it up a little bit. A little more the other way. Stop. Close enough. Looks like the yoke's a little crooked too.
Yeah.
Can you rotate the yoke?
Yep. Loosen it up here. Which way do I need to go?
You need to go my count your clockwise. The other way. The other way. Oh, you're still trying to get it loose or what?
Yeah, it's pretty stiff there.
That's what she said.
There's fresh glue on this thing.
You know what? It is so damn close. I'm just gonna call it. Tighten up the key.
Yep.
Okay, well, I guess that's the end of this video. If you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Check out some of my other videos. Have a good one.